Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today to commemorate the State Bar of Michigan's 43rd Michigan Legal Milestone. My name is Peter Cunningham. I'm the Executive Director of the State Bar, and it's an honor to welcome all of you here to today's event. For those of you who don't know, the mission of the State Bar of Michigan is to promote the professionalism of lawyers, advocate for an open, fair, and accessible justice system, and provide services to members to help them best serve their clients. This Michigan Legal Milestone recognizes the significance of Public Act 109 of 1857, which ultimately is about ensuring access to justice for all of those accused of a crime, regardless of whether they can afford an attorney. Not only is this an issue that has been important to the State Bar of Michigan for many decades, it is an issue that is also near and dear to my heart. Before I came to work at the State Bar of Michigan 10 years ago, I was the Executive Director of the Michigan Campaign for Justice, an organization whose sole purpose was to improve the indigent defense system in Michigan. And my work on the Michigan Campaign for Justice, where I worked with lots of other stakeholders, with the Criminal Defense Attorneys of Michigan, the ACLU of Michigan, the Michigan District Judges Association, and the Michigan Association of Judges, and the State Bar of Michigan, is what led to my getting hired at the State Bar of Michigan as their Director of Governmental Relations 10 years ago. And I consider it to be the most proud moment. I worked in and around the legislature for almost 20 years now, including with Judge Lipsey. When I started, he was a representative there. And I consider that the Michigan Indigent Defense Act, which we're going to talk about more today, as the legislation that I worked on that I'm the most proud of. It's one of those pieces of legislation that was really big. When I started working on it, people told me, you'll never get anywhere. You'll never get legislators to care about people accused of crimes. You'll never get the state to spend money on it. And here we are, and we're going to talk more about how all of those naysayers were wrong. That this was an issue that people did cared about on all sides of the issue, on all sides of the aisle. And it was exciting to work on that and to be here unveiling the Michigan Legal Milestone that really gets at that issue means a lot to me. Before we kick off today's program, just realized I forgot one of these. Sorry. I still didn't get it, but I just want to thank all of the State Bar staff who helped pull this event together. Jen Hatter, and a lot of them are here today, Jen Hatter, and Amy Kastner, and Marjorie Raymer, and Sarah Brown, and Darren Day, who's not here today because he has COVID, and Lynn Ingram, who couldn't make the trip either. And finally, I wanted to acknowledge Carrie Charlo. Where is Carrie Charlo? Carrie deserves special recognition. She is the person who, she is a State Bar employee, and she made the original nomination for this to be a Michigan Legal Milestone. To the State Bar's Michigan Legal Milestone Committee. I have worked with Carrie since I started the State Bar. This kind of hit an intersection of a lot of Carrie's passions. Carrie works in governmental relations. She cared a lot about indigent defense. She was instrumental as part of our team to work on indigent criminal defense reform. And she's also a history nut. That would be another word to describe Carrie. And she this grew out of, she wrote an article about 10 or 11 years ago about Senator Gilbert Moyers as part of her Lawyers in History program, or Lawyers in History series. I think it has a fancier name than that. And that was her first article, was about Gilbert Moyer and about this act and other things in his life. And so anybody who wants to learn more about Gilbert Moyer or anything else about any other lawyer in Michigan history, please go talk to Carrie after this event. She'd love to talk to you about that. So thank you, Carrie, for bringing us all here today. Next, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce you to James W. King. the 88th President of the State Bar of Michigan. James's day job is serving as the Chief Legal Officer for the state's largest county as Wayne County Corporation Counsel, and he previously served as Inspector General for the City of Detroit, Assistant Michigan Attorney General, and Assistant Prosecutor in Wayne County. He was elected to the Board of Commissioners in 2013 and is a member of the State Bar Executive Committee and has served as chair for both the Public Policy and Finance Committees. And he was just sworn in on Friday by Justice Elizabeth Clement, which makes today James's 6th day on the job as State Bar President. Please help me welcome James.
Thank you so much, Peter. I appreciate that. Wonderful to get. It's been 6 days. I'm already a hardened, chiseled, experienced State Bar President. This is a wonderful opportunity to get my first taste of being outside of Metro Detroit in that role, and so I appreciate the invitation here today. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge a couple of our commissioners here, but first I want to begin with Justice Elizabeth Welch, who is here. Thank you for joining us. Tom Murray is a brand new commissioner from Grand Rapids, and so Tom, thank you for being here. And then Nick Onahisian is here, also a commissioner. Nick has that glow. He just is the immediate chair of the Representative Assembly, where he did a wonderful job, and then the good lawyers of Grand Rapids area had the foresight to elect him to the Board of Commissioners. So Nick, I look forward to serving with you over the years to come. Peter, thank you very much for that introduction. I will admit to you that I come to you doing double duty, not just as State Bar President, but also as Wayne County Corporation Counsel. This evening is especially important because of the work that we've done as a result of the efforts that many folks in this room have made, Peter and others, to bring the issue of indigent defense to a reality to so many places throughout the country, throughout the state, and especially in my home county of Wayne. We've come full circle in Wayne County, and that began with the 1849 murder case that occurred, Carrie, thank you to your research, right in Wayne County. For the past 170 years plus, since Attorney Marshall Bacon petitioned the Michigan Supreme Court for reasonable payment for representing his accused client, accused of murder, at least in Wayne County, the pace of indigent defense reform has moved, dare I say, slowly. Unfortunately, it was not until the groundbreaking work of the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, brought about by the Michigan Indigent Defense Act, and the work done by former Judge Jim Fisher. Peter is giving his best Jim Fisher impersonation here today, and his colleagues at the MIDC, that the ball really got rolling in the right direction, especially in Wayne County. In fact, using the funds granted to Wayne County by the state, we commissioned a study by the extremely well-regarded Sixth Amendment Center to study our indigent defense system. And the results, the report, I don't mind telling you, were abysmal. The report found significant deficiencies in our system, including unmanageable caseloads for lawyers, lack of training, and yes, the abysmal pay that Attorney Marshall Bacon experienced back in 1849. However, as a direct result of the work we commemorate here today, I'm pleased to report that because of the state of Michigan's commitment, Wayne County has made more strides in the past 5 years than we made in the prior 170. Over the past 5 fiscal years, including fiscal year 23, the County of Wayne has received over $150 million from the state in grants for indigent defense. $150 million. Next fiscal year, we will receive $38 million. And let me give you a sense of scale. In the year before the MIDC, my county spent $8 million on all of the 20,000 or so felony indigent defense cases in Wayne County. Next year, we got $38 million. We hired Neighborhood Defender Services, the national nonprofit leader in indigent defense representation. They handle now 35% of the felony cases in Wayne County, and they are doing a marvelous job. My chief judge, Judge Tim Kinney, can't tell me enough how much he wants them to do more of the cases in Wayne County because they do phenomenal work. We've partnered with Gideon's Promise and the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers to provide training and certification to lawyers who practice throughout Wayne County in criminal defense. And sometimes I've seen a few prosecutors even sneak in to some of those trainings. We've assigned investigators and experts in over 1,500 criminal defense cases in Wayne County. Any of you who practice in Wayne County know it used to be like pulling teeth, not because the court didn't want to give you, but because there just wasn't the funding. The problem we have now is convincing the criminal defense attorneys, hey, you got these experts, you got these social workers, you got these investigators who can help you and your clients in defense. And in the first time ever, we are moving from an occurrence-based structure to an hourly rate structure. I'm reminded by Gary that Attorney Marshall wanted to spend $25 on a homicide case. Now, and I'm embarrassed to say that for some cases it wasn't much more than $25 just as well that we would pay even recently, but we're moving away from that model to one in which lawyers are going to be compensated on an hourly basis in a way that allows them to be compensated fairly for the work that they do and for what our Constitution requires. I initially came here to say congratulations, but my heart says I should say thank you instead. Thank you to Marshall Bacon. Thank you to Senator Gilbert Moyers, and thank you to the Michigan Milestones Committee for making today possible. Your volunteer service to this committee and to the State Bar are truly appreciated. I'd like to take a moment to introduce my good friend, Judge Jacqueline McClinton, to share a few words. I have the mic in the podium so I can call her Jackie because we are good friends. Jackie currently serves in my hometown as a judge on the 36th District Court in Detroit. She's a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and she is chair of the Michigan Milestones Committee and is this evening's Master of Ceremonies. Thank you all for the service that you do. Jackie, thank you for the service of bringing us here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Heath, for that very, very warm welcome. And I'm so happy that he did not tell you the PlayStation story that he did share with Executive Director Cunningham just before the ceremony started. So I too want to join in thanking you all for being here. Justice Welch, we're so very happy to have you here, members of the State Bar and all the guests that are here. Thank you for taking out time for this very, very important occasion. My name is Jacqueline McClinton, and I have the privilege of serving as the chair of the Michigan Legal Milestone Committee this year. You know, I've been an attorney, now a judge, for a little more than 17 years, and I still am overwhelmed at how many milestones there are in Michigan. Michigan has done some amazing, amazing things. Some have been celebrated, and some will be celebrated in the future. But we're here today to celebrate Public Act 109 of 1857, and I join in the sentiments that have been shared about how important this legislation was to ensure that individuals who are indigent receive representation, and the lawyers that represent them are compensated for that representation. So we really think that this was so deserving to be the 43rd Michigan Legal Milestone. I am, as has been said, a 36th District Court judge in Detroit, and I really think that this legislation has paved the way and was the foundation for other legislation. In Detroit, I work on the landlord-tenant or preside over the landlord-tenant docket, and the defendants facing eviction now are entitled to representation free of charge as well. So that has been expanded, and so we are very, very excited that they are receiving representation. Next month, I will attend the National Association of Women Judges Conference, which will be held in Detroit, and one of the topics is how the courts can better serve low-income civil litigants. So I really think Public Act 109 has paved the way for all of this, and the conversation will just continue in the future. I have two of my committee members here, and I am not as good as President Heath is with last names, but Pamela and Kelly, if you could please stand so everyone can see you. I think it's Pamela Wall and Kelly Middleman, but I didn't want to mess it up. So please, this is a team effort. We've had members from the State Bar, Darren, we certainly miss him here today, and our committee to help bring this important event today. So I just wanted to make sure that the committee is thanked for your efforts as well. Certainly I wouldn't be standing here without you, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, as President Heath indicated, we were supposed to hear next from Judge James Fisher. He cannot be with us here today, so Executive Director Cunningham, as flexible as he is going to stand in for Judge Fisher. But I just want to tell you a little bit about Judge Fisher. Most of us who have had any exposure to the indigent defense know Judge Fisher and the contributions he has made to this particular issue. Judge Fisher served as Fifth Circuit Judge from 1995 until his retirement in 2011. Then he began his career as an assistant prosecutor and was appointed to Berrien County prosecuting as the Berrien County prosecuting attorney at the age of 28. Judge Fisher was appointed in 2011 to lead the state's Indigent Defense Advisory Commission, which directly led to the legislative reforms of 2013 and created a foundation for fair and adequate funding for indigent defense in Michigan. He then became the first chairman of the newly created Michigan Indigent Defense Commission and continues to serve there as the commissioner. Judge Fisher could not be here with us today, but he is a wealth of knowledge, and to give his speech in the history of this important issue, Executive Director Cunningham. Please give him a round of applause as he comes.
Thank you. I am not Jim Fisher, and but he was gracious enough, he had written a speech. I am going to deliver this speech as if I were Jim Fisher. I will channel him. I'm taller, I have less hair though, but hopefully I can do his speech justice. I will say before I start that we just actually awarded Judge Fisher, along with Judge Tom Boyd, the State Bar of Michigan's Champion of Justice Award last Friday for their work on the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, on creating the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission. So with that, I will channel Jim Fisher. I also, before I start, he's not here today because also, and he wanted me to let everybody here know that he tested positive for COVID yesterday, and that's why he couldn't make it. He really did want to be here today. So, now, it's Jim Fisher's words. I'm sorry that I'm unable to be there to celebrate with you today, but I asked Peter to share my thoughts with you. I have been a lawyer for nearly 46 years now, and I look good for that. But until I heard about this legal milestone celebration, I had never heard of Senator Moyer or the legislation he sponsored 165 years ago, requiring counties in Michigan to pay for lawyers appointed to represent indigent individuals charged with criminal offenses. It's a fitting time to recognize his contributions to this cause, since you will hear from our other speakers today about the great progress that we have made in Michigan improving our indigent defense system over the last several years. I actually handled some indigent defense cases in my home in Berry County, next door to where you're all gathered today. And I find it interesting that the county paid us $40 an hour for our services back in 1979. It doesn't sound like much today, but 40 years ago, it wasn't a terrible fee. I think back then, many lawyers charged $50 to $100 an hour. The problems that we have tried to address result from the sad fact that the fees in many, if not most counties in Michigan, never kept pace with inflation over the years. And it's interesting to note that if you apply the CPI figures for the last 40 years to that $40 an hour figure, you end up very close to the $100 to $130 an hour minimum fees that we expect the State Department of Licensing and Regulation to approve later this fall. The lawyers in Wayne County, for example, we just heard, just got their first rate increase this year since sometime in the 1980s. The problem that was embodied in Senator Lawyer's law passed in 1857 was that it placed financial responsibility for payment of the lawyers on the counties, not the state. However, his law was very forward-thinking in its overall purpose, and it was another 106 years before the U.S. Supreme Court decided in Gideon v. Wainwright, which established the constitutional right to a lawyer to be paid by the state if a person charged with a crime was unable to pay for lawyer services. When I started practicing as an assistant prosecutor in Berry County in 1977, the implementation of the Gideon case's principles was still in its infancy, and it was very common for most defendants charged with misdemeanors to show up in court unrepresented. The $40 rate was not terrible in 1979, and was still the rate paid in 1995, when I became the Berry County Circuit Judge. The impetus to finally do something about this sad state of affairs was a 2008 study in Michigan of 10 representative counties commissioned by the legislature and the State Bar of Michigan. The study found that none of the 10 county studies had a system that satisfied the constitutional mandates of Gideon, and overall, Michigan ranked 44th of the 50 states in terms of resources devoted to indigent defense. It was a telling indictment of the dire situation that existed at that time. A group of lawyers advocated for a centrally run system for the entire state in 2009, but the judges were largely opposed to this proposal, and Judge Tom Boyd and I were appointed by our respective judicial associations to make sure that it never became law. That was an easy task. But what we didn't know was that we would be revisiting the issue in 2012 when Governor Snyder, at the urging of his legal counsel, Mike Godola, who is now an appeals court judge, and Elizabeth Clement, who is now a Supreme Court justice, decided to appoint an advisory committee to study the problem and suggest changes. I was asked to chair that advisory commission. I agreed to become involved again, and frankly, was dreading the assignment. I figured that any solution was known to be very expensive, and I didn't exactly relish the idea of lobbying the legislature for lots of money for criminal defendants and lawyers. My trepidation was not alleviated at our first meeting when I realized that the advisory commission was comprised of individuals who represented the entire spectrum of political thought, from the ACLU to a self-described ultra-conservative, and everything else in between. What happened in this process was surprising to me and very heartening. I came to understand that all of these diverse people with different viewpoints really cherished the concepts of justice and freedom, and we were able to reach a consensus on a path forward. We knew that the problem was too large and complicated for a group of volunteers to take on, so the central recommendations were to provide for a commission that would establish minimum standards for indigent defense, that would have a full-time staff to gather the data and make the case for funding to the legislature, and that would leave the details of how to satisfy the standards up to each local court funding unit. The state would provide the additional funding needed to pay for the improvements, and the counties would be required to maintain their previous levels of support. These suggestions became law with the passage of Public Act 93 of 2013, maybe a future legal milestone. And the commission was appointed over the course of the next year and started meeting in September 2014. Judge Boyd deserves the credit for drafting the legislation and negotiating its terms with the various stakeholders. We hired an executive director, Jonathan Sachs, who started to assemble staff in January of 2015. We worked steadily for a few years developing our 8 standards and trying to figure out what this was all going to cost. I remember asking Beth Clement, who at that time was working in the governor's office, what she thought we should initially request from the legislature. I thought $40 million would be a good start, and she encouraged me to ask for half of that, since up until that point, the legislature had paid nothing for indigent defense in its entire existence. And it was unlikely that they would grant that much support to our effort. I was shocked when our initial appropriation was granted. When our initial appropriation was granted, it was for over $80 million. For the fiscal year beginning in October, our state appropriation is about $150 million. And as a state, we will be paying nearly $200 million to support an indigent defense system that has gone from nearly the worst in the country to nearly the first. In 2008, total support for indigent defense in Michigan was under $75 million. I can't tell you how thrilled I am when I talk to young lawyers across the state who tell me that they realize that they can actually make a living doing what they love to do, and that they have the resources to do a good job for their clients. My takeaway from this experience is that great things can be accomplished when citizens come together to focus on a problem. They listen to each other and they consider each other's thoughts with respect, and they don't let partisan differences deter them from achieving their goals. Wouldn't it be great if our political leaders in Lansing could learn a few lessons from what we have demonstrated? I consider it a privilege to have worked with many diverse and wonderful people from all across the state on this project. In many ways, it has been so rewarding to have been able to serve. I am honored to have been part of this, and I am convinced that we will continue to achieve great things in the future because we all love justice, freedom, and the rule of law. And it all started 165 years ago, right here in Allegan County. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cunningham. You channeled Judge Fisher very, very well. And we would like to thank Judge Fisher in his absence for the history behind Public Act 109 of 1857. Next, we are going to have a presentation by Susan Prentice-Sau, who is the Michigan Indigent Defense Council's Regional Manager for the Western Michigan. Prior to joining MIDC, she represented indigent defendants for over a decade in Kalamazoo County and surrounding areas. Please welcome Susan Prentice-Sau to the podium.
Well, I am absolutely thrilled to showcase the collaborative and innovative West Michigan region. We will meet the region, the PD offices, investigators, social workers, interns, trainers, and professors, and provide you with examples of how resources are stretched by these amazing people. Also, you will get to know how we connect with our clients and communities. We are 14 counties, 15 systems, 23 courthouses, and 10 PD offices. Several systems have regionalized, Allegan and Van Buren, as well as Wyoming, Granville, Walker, and Kentwood. We search for ways to collaborate. All three systems in Kent County share investigators. The West Michigan Investigator Group share a training budget. There is an office manager listserv, and we utilize appeal partners. We strive to provide our clients with zealous, client-centered representation. In FY19, there were 3 full-time social workers. For FY23, 21 were requested. The use of social workers has led to better attorney-client relationships and a higher level of client participation, which culminates in more creative solutions that better serve our clients and the community. In FY19, there were 7 full-time investigators. For FY23, 20 were requested. The use of investigators has led to pretrial investigations, identification of additional witnesses, expert review of police reports, and the collection of evidence not identified in reports. Investigators help attorneys understand subject matter, which enables them to explain intricacies to their clients. The tracking down and interviewing of witnesses is constant, and its importance for trial prep and negotiations is invaluable. Investigations by the defense increases legitimacy in the legal process and our client's faith in it. In order to continue to increase the use of social workers and investigators, our systems have developed a variety of referral forms in order to make the requesting process as user-friendly and efficient as possible. The results are undeniable. In FY20, 1,300 cases used an investigator. In FY22, we are on track for over 3,000 cases to use an investigator. Ottawa's PD chief described West Michigan as follows: harnessing resources to have a strategic impact on individual clients and systems at large. Meet our 10 PD chiefs. 7 of these chiefs did the heavy lift of creating a PD office. They have worked hard to understand and implement the MIDC standards. Many supportive and friendly relationships have evolved over the last 3 years. Meet our investigators. These are some of the dedicated professionals currently serving West Michigan. Because of their expertise and perseverance, there are many success stories. Today we will highlight 4 of these successes. The first case. The client was charged with the felony of criminal sexual conduct. Investigators were able to find evidence that confirmed the complainant texted about the CSC allegations. These text messages revealed a scheme to help the biological mom get her child back. It turned out the CSC allegation was false. In the second case, the client was charged with a misdemeanor of domestic violence. The prosecutor had the 911 call for this alleged DV incident. The defender's office investigator learned that the complainant had made other 911 calls alleging DV. In the end, over 50 911 calls were pulled, and the allegations were recanted, and the charges were dismissed. In the third case, this was a misdemeanor with a large restitution request. The victim fabricated many requests, including the purchase of an emotional support animal. She provided an email stating that she had purchased the dog for $1,500. Turned out the person who sent her the email was her friend, and this friend had made up the expense. The client was facing thousands of dollars in restitution. Ultimately, restitution was not ordered. Without the investigator, the client would have been tied down for years trying to pay that restitution. And for the final success story that I'll share today. This case involved countless hours of investigation, motions, and appeals. To make a long story short, the investigative team discovered the police raided the wrong house by discovering the address on the search warrant was incorrect. All the felony charges were dismissed. Because of the investigators, this client was not separated from her children, family, and community. Approximately a year ago, the West Michigan Investigator Group was created. A listserv was made and Zoom meetings were held. These meetings are attended by chiefs, deputy chiefs, and investigators from all 10 PD offices. The last 3 meetings were at the Allegan PD office. This group has developed several goals. They are developing trainings. In FY23, they would like to hold 4 regional conferences and 1 statewide conference. They want to find ways to help level the playing field as well. For example, the definition of criminal justice worker does not extend to public defender investigators. Therefore, there are databases and trainings that our investigators are excluded from. Meet our social workers. Pictured are some of the compassionate social workers that serve West Michigan. They collaborate all of the time. They work with the court, PD office staff, defense attorneys, each other, and anyone who inquires. They are always eager to listen, brainstorm, and lend a helping hand. Prior to MIDC funding, Muskegon had a PD office. This office collaborated with the Bronx Defenders and brought aboard a social work intern and created a thriving intern program. Through networking, Muskegon assists other offices looking to hire social workers. Pictured are a few of the interns turned full-time Defender Office social workers. We are very fortunate to have this training and hiring pipeline. Pictured is the last internship day for Allegan Van Buren's law school intern. This internship was during the height of the pandemic and conducted by Zoom. The final day was a mock trial, which the team prepared for during the internship. I was lucky enough to get to participate as a juror, and trust me, fun was had by all. This summer, I had the privilege to meet Ottawa's summer law student intern. He studies in Wisconsin, but is from Ottawa County. He is thrilled to be part of Ottawa's PD office. Berrien had an intern throughout the last 2 years. She just passed the bar and is now a full-blown Berrien County public defender. One goal for FY23 is for offices to grow their internship programs. A few months ago, I surveyed the West Michigan offices and inquired what they hope to achieve from their internship programs. They hope to create a hiring pipeline, increase goodwill, dispel myths about public defense, and have an additional member of the team. Additionally, they said these passionate interns bring an amazing vibe and enthusiasm to the office. Meet our trainers and professors. Jennifer Peck, Don Trail, and Denise Lane led workshops at our 2022 MIDC Leadership Conference. Walter Downs, Larry Lewis, and Amanda Mitter teach classes at local colleges. Amanda and Alyssa led a workshop at the conference for the Michigan Association for Treatment Court Professionals. Muskegon's Amanda Mitter hosted a free statewide 3-day social work training with special guests Alyssa from Ottawa and Chad from Allegan. It was a nuts and bolts training with plenty of time to brainstorm, collaborate, and create lasting friendships. But the training never ends in West Michigan. Systems constantly look for opportunities and resources within its own system to provide trainings to increase their knowledge about important topics. We contribute to the national indigent defense community by participating in research studies. Berry County is one of 2 locations in the entire United States to participate in a study regarding the cost-benefit of counsel at first appearance. One of the ways we connect with our communities is through partnerships. Kalamazoo Defenders Village embraces holistic representation and includes various service partners. Several of these providers have on-site offices in order to make it easier for their clients to access these services. This village is funded with community grants. By using volunteers and donations, many PD offices have held expungement clinics. These expungement clinics help pave the way for brighter futures for our fellow citizens. Several of our offices partnered with Safe and Just Michigan and West Michigan Works. These clinics delivered a great service by helping people determine their eligibility to set aside convictions, complete the necessary petitions, notarize documents, and complete fingerprints in one convenient setting. By participating in our communities, we learn their needs. Through collaboration, innovation, donations, and volunteers, we attempt to meet these needs. We provide public products and hold community meetings. Several offices have created clothing closets, and their clients really appreciate these donations. Through volunteer hours and donation dollars, Berrien and Calhoun found meaningful ways to engage with the youth in their community. In Gideon versus Wainwright, the Supreme Court held that the states are required under the Sixth Amendment to provide counsel to indigent defendants in criminal cases. In West Michigan, we believe it is important to honor Gideon in this fundamental right by doing our best and looking for opportunities to do more. Over time, we will see the impact of the increased resources and intensity in our region in identifiable and measurable ways, such as reduced recidivism and incarceration. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Susan, for that very impactful presentation to show us just how much Public Act 109 of 1857 is still impacting the legal community today. So thank you so much for that. Our last speaker of the evening is Chad Catalino. He serves as the Director of the Office of Public Defender and Chief Public Defender in Allegan and Van Buren counties. In this role, he is working to develop a holistic defense office and is working in collaboration with the MIDC to implement beneficial, systematic changes in Michigan. He is an experienced criminal defense litigator and has dedicated his career to public service. Please give a warm welcome for Chad Catalino.
I'll just speak real loud like I'm in trial. I don't know what I did. All right. Well, we'll try this. Can you agree here? All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this celebration posthumously honoring Gilbert Boyers. As I was preparing my remarks today, two questions continuously appeared at the forefront of my preparation. First, why do we honor people for their life accomplishments even when they're gone? As you sit here, we got to really think about this. Gilbert Boyers isn't here. His family isn't here. His friends aren't here. Rather, for all intents and purposes, we are a group of strangers here to celebrate something that Gilbert Boyers accomplished while he was here on Earth and in our community approximately 165 years ago. So why is this ceremony important? And this led me to the second question that has been at the forefront of my preparation. How does one make Gilbert Boyers' accomplishments 165 years ago relevant and interesting to us, this gathered group of strangers? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that these are really hard questions. And maybe they're going to be even harder to accomplish in my remarks today. However, I submit to all of you that honoring Gilbert Boyers is immensely important because people like Gilbert Boyers who accomplish legacy-worthy actions can be an amazing inspiration to those of us who believe that we too may be able to accomplish legacy-worthy actions. So if you'll indulge me for a few moments, I'd like to explore these two positive questions. When I was a child, my parents emphasized the importance of reading. My mother was a prolific reader of books about the lives of ordinary people who accomplished extraordinary things simply because the world needed those ordinary people to do extraordinary things at those times. People like John Adams, who was one of the bravest public defenders this country has ever known. These stories were exceptionally inspiring to a young boy. And as I became older, I continued to read about ordinary people like Todd Beamer. This is the man who decided on September 11th of 2001, at a Flight 93 over Pennsylvania, that he's going to storm the cockpit of a hijacked flight and said those infamous words, "Let's roll." And he said those words right before he tried to save a plane full of people and likely save numerous lives at the United States Capitol. These stories instilled in me a desire, a burning desire, to do something great in this world. A burning desire to be one of those extraordinary people who did something extraordinary. A burning desire to leave a legacy in this world that hopefully would inspire others after I'm gone. And while books on history and great people had a profound impact on my life, there was one other interesting influence. My father graduated law school when I was 13 years old, and because I was older when he went to law school, I was exposed to the Constitution and the principles of law very early in my life. This exposure left me with an understanding that the legal system, namely the criminal justice system, and those who serve an indigent representation are instrumental in maintaining the integrity and legitimacy of our democracy. That the challenging of that system was one of the ways American society ensures that this grand experiment called democracy could stand with its head high as a beacon of legitimate government for our world's citizens. What no one likely knew on Gilbert's birthday back in September 13, 1833, was that the Michigan Constitution would have a lasting influence on Gilbert Boyer's life. The Michigan Constitution contained an extremely important provision that required that a person charged with a crime in Michigan had the right to the assistance of counsel. That right, however, did not ensure that indigent defense counsel would receive any compensation related to that representation. Thus, throughout Michigan's early history, indigent defense attorneys were expected to uphold the principles of legitimacy within the criminal justice system as demanded by the United States and Michigan constitutions, but to do it at great expense to themselves and their families. What no one knew as Gilbert matriculated through the University of Michigan and then to Allegan County was that Gilbert Moyers was extremely brave. He was extremely brave in his burning desire to do something extraordinary. What no one knew was how motivated Gilbert Moyers was to make a difference in this democracy. So much so that Gilbert Moyers is ultimately elected in 1856, the Michigan State Senator for the 13th District of Michigan, covering what is now Allegan County. And since many of you have been elected, you know firsthand the challenges associated with being a newly elected official. You all can imagine the challenges associated with being a freshman senator, the limited opportunity freshman senators have to forward their own legislative agendas. But Gilbert Moyers does not appear to be concerned about this systemic roadblock. Despite these challenges, as a freshman state senator, Gilbert Moyers is able to pass extremely significant legacy and legitimacy-inducing legislation relating to Michigan indigent criminal justice system. And while Gilbert Moyers passed this legacy-worthy legislation, Gilbert Moyers has an equally impressive legacy that is of great impact here in Allegan and Van Buren counties, as well as West Michigan and across the state of Michigan. Like many of us who hope that our children, our nephews, our nieces, our students, our mentees go on to bigger accomplishments than ourselves, Gilbert Moyers likely had that same hope for his children. And his children knew this. Gilbert Moyers' youngest daughter was only one of 5 women to graduate from Washington College of Law on June 5, 1900. She then went on to become just the 28th woman to be sworn in to argue cases as a lawyer in front of the United States Supreme Court on April 18th of 1907. This aspect of Gilbert Moyers' legacy is important as I look around Allegan and Van Buren counties as well as West Michigan. I see women in positions where they are shaping the legacy and legitimacy of the indigent defense system. We have women as judges, as prosecutors, and as appointed public defenders. We have women in support roles within those systems who do some of the most significant day-to-day operational work to forward the objectives of that system. We have women in leadership roles at MIDC who work tirelessly to ensure that Gilbert Moyer's legacy continues here in our great state. We talk about this in our office all the time. We discuss how at this time in history, Michigan is looking for talented and dedicated women leaders to lead the next generation of indigent defense reform. It is immensely exciting for my office to have the opportunity to follow Gilbert Moyer's legacy and recruit and be able to work with these dedicated women attorneys, social workers, and support staff who are following that legacy. As many of you are aware, in 2008, the National Legal Aid and Defender Association published a report called The Race to the Bottom: Speed and Savings Over Due Process, a Constitutional Crisis. One of the stunning statistics that came out of that report was that historically, Michigan counties were spending $7.35 per capita on indigent defense services. Michigan ranked 44th out of 50 states in indigent defense per capita spending. Resource allocation is a hallmark measurement related to the legitimacy of Michigan's indigent defense system. This is as true in 2022 as it was when Gilbert Moyers passed his groundbreaking legislation in 1857. Without adequate spending on the defense of those accused of crimes, the citizens of Michigan and the United States lose confidence that the convictions and sentences handed down upon those accused of crimes do not adequately reflect that the government's case was properly vetted, properly challenged, and the adversarial process, which is a hallmark of our democracy, was not properly utilized. Gilbert Moyers understood this when he passed the legislation that required those on the front lines to be paid to properly challenge the government's case, to properly engage in that adversarial process. In implementing this legacy of legitimacy, as modeled by Gilbert Moyers, Allegan and Van Buren counties has evidenced our continued commitment to providing indigent defendants actual resources. From our office's inception, we increased our compensation to our attorneys, whereby we compensate our attorneys at a rate of $100 per hour for a misdemeanor case, $110 an hour for a felony case, and $120 an hour for a capital case. This has allowed all of our attorneys to focus on the need to spend time on a case, to investigate, to study. In other words, properly vet that government's case. Allegan and Van Buren counties understand that the real work of indigent defense revolves around the preparation of cases. I often tell our attorneys that appearing in court is the easy part. It's the sitting at your desk late at night or very early in the morning, doing the real study, the real preparation that is hard. It's the real work. And now we have the ability to properly compensate our attorneys for that really hard work. And when we do this really hard work, the behind-the-scenes work, the work that no one knows about, when we're able to properly challenge the cases in court, this proper vetting allows the citizens of Michigan to have confidence that the convictions and sentences handed down are done through the proper application of the adversarial system. This is Gilbert Moyers' legacy, and now this is all of our adopted legacy here in Allegan and Van Buren counties. Since 2019, we have dedicated resources to the training of attorneys, and I'm proud to share that all of the attorneys within Allegan and Van Buren counties' regional indigent defense system have completed at least 12 training credits in each of our operational years, and are utilizing that training for the benefit of our clients and to help ensure the legitimacy of the indigent defense system in Allegan and Van Buren counties. Additionally, our staff and roster attorneys are also required to meet minimum standards of competency or experience related to their case assignments. When our attorneys are trained, when our attorneys meet the qualifications and experience levels, we have the formalized ability to actually engage in the vetting of the government's case through the adversarial process that our forefathers developed. This gives all of the citizens confidence in the convictions and sentences that are handed down. This is Gilbert Moyers' legacy of legitimacy, and it is now our shared legacy. Prior to the MIDC reforms, we often met clients for the first time at their pretrial. We would run into the jail or run into a conference room and provide a brief introduction and tell our clients about the negotiated settlement offer that we just got that could have a lasting impact on the rest of their lives. Think about the life-changing decisions you've made over the years. I submit that there are very few of you who made those decisions with input from a person you just met, from a person who came flying in to the room and said, "Here are your options, now take it or leave it." I submit that you would have no confidence in that person's ability to help you navigate that decision-making process. However, that is historically what Indigent Defense Counsel did. And despite these historical failures in the way we conducted our business, we were sometimes shocked that our clients had no confidence in us. The resources that are now brought to bear are the resources necessary, as Gilbert Moyers envisioned, to meet clients, develop a legitimate relationship, and to begin the actual hard work of vetting a case, thereby building legitimacy into the indigent defense system. In Allegan and Van Buren counties, as a direct result of the legacy provided by Gilbert Moyers, we are seeing over 96% of our clients within 72 hours of appointment to their case. This is Gilbert Moyers' legacy, and now it is our shared legacy. As many of you know, prior to the MIDC reforms, Indigent Defense Counsel was required to petition the court for funding for investigative or expert witness assistance. Indigent Defense Counsel was required to file a motion requesting that assistance, explain in open court the need for assistance in their litigation strategy. This placed indigent defendants at a disadvantage related to their litigation strategy, a disadvantage that was not borne by their wealthy counterparts. This in turn led many to believe that the indigent defense system was illegitimate in its application. But Gilbert Moyers' legacy has had a direct impact on this aspect of the indigent defense system. The Office of the Public Defender now makes all funding and appointment decisions related to the appointment of expert witnesses and investigator assistance for indigent defense cases. In the West Michigan region alone, between fiscal year 2020 and 2021, there was a 64% increase in the number of investigators used in indigent defense cases. In Allegan and Van Buren counties alone, we also had a 64% increase in our use of expert witnesses. To have confidence in the legitimacy of our indigent criminal justice system, our citizens must see that our poor have the same access to justice as our wealthy. They must see that we have dedicated the necessary resources and then utilize those resources to vet our cases, which provides increased legitimacy to our indigent criminal justice system. This is our shared legacy of legitimacy as first enunciated by Gilbert Moyers. I want you to think about a time in your life where something happened where you needed help, or you had to navigate a process that you didn't know. In the criminal justice system, the first experience, the arraignment, is that unknown process for many people. While the wealthy can simply walk into an attorney's office, hire that attorney to help them navigate this initial process, the indigent cannot. Historically, indigent defense attorneys did not appear at this initial hearing. The wealthy had the benefit of bond arguments. Indigent defendants did not. Think about the humanity of that for one moment. Humanity. On one of your worst days, there is no one there. No one there to help you navigate through that. No one to make a valid bond argument. And thus, in many places, that indigent defendant was more likely to spend his or her time in pretrial detention. In America, one of our basic tenets of the criminal justice system revolves around the idea that a person charged with a crime is innocent until proven guilty. That there are not punishments until the finder of fact finds someone guilty. This is such an important tenet that we enunciate this tenet multiple times to a jury within a jury trial, before the start of the trial, at voir dire, during the final instructions. Yet historically, our system has appeared to condone the bond system that appeared to validate pretrial punishment of the poor as a valid method. This is another legacy of legitimacy that Gilbert Moyers has shared with us. The Office of the Public Defender is now funded to the extent that we appear at the initial arraignment with our indigent clients. In fact, we now appear at over 94% of the initial arraignments. We've gone from almost 0% appearance rate, a 0% appearance rate, up to 94% in 2022. Our clients now have the benefit of having an attorney present to help them navigate their way through that system. They have the benefit of having an attorney present to help make legally significant arguments related to their bond. This increases the legitimacy of the bonds that are set overall, and we are now in a position to have confidence that those bonds are set after taking into account actual legal arguments. I submit that Gilbert Moyers believed that if an indigent defense attorney was compensated for his or her work, that this action could reduce a defendant's belief that their attorney was simply working for their government. In this vein, the Office of the Public Defender is its own entity. The Office of the Public Defender assigns all the attorneys to indigent defense cases, and the Office of the Public Defender independently provides compensation for that representation. The perception that any other organization has political or financial influence over indigent defense counsel is being reduced. This, in turn, is helping rebuild the integrity of the relationship between the lawyer and the client. This, again, is our shared legacy with Gilbert Moyers, the legacy of legitimacy. On April 23, 1910, former United States President Theodore Roosevelt was in Paris, and he delivered a speech that he had entitled Citizenship in the Republic. This speech has become more widely known as the Man in the Arena. There's a line in the speech that has particular meaning to Gilbert Moyers and to our shared legacy of legitimacy. In that speech, former President Theodore Roosevelt wrote, this one gets me, the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails daring greatly. Very soon the plaque we are about to unveil honoring Gilbert Moyers' legacy of legitimacy will be placed in the Allegan County Courthouse. I encourage you to stop for a few moments when you walk by, when you are discouraged that you may not be making a difference in this grand experiment we call democracy. When you are concerned that there are those who mock your attempts at achievement and that they may be correct. And remember, only the person in the arena willing to put themselves on the line to attempt great things will ever know the triumph of high achievement or the bliss of snubbing our nose at the concern of failing greatly. I submit that Gilbert Moyers' legacy is one that encourages all of us who truly believe in the greatness of this republic. It is a legacy of high achievement and being brave enough to snub our nose at the concern of failing greatly in support of the legitimacy of the greatest democracy the world has ever known. So please, please, go forward. Be Gilbert Moyers. Be his daughter. Live your life daring to do something great, while also daring to fail greatly in the arena. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chad, for that very impassioned speech. I do not touch the mic. I do not. I don't want to be going up and down with it, but we really just hope that you, after listening to Chad, Susan, and Judge Fisher through Director Cunningham, understand why the Michigan Legal Milestone Committee thought Public Act 109, 1857 was a worthy selection of the 43rd milestone. And now for the moment that you've all been waiting for, I would like to invite President Heath to come around, make his way to the easel. All right, for the unveiling, the presentation of the 43rd Michigan Legal Milestone. The plaque will be permanently placed in the Allegan County Courthouse, as Chad stated. So now, on three, 1, 2, 3. The 43rd Michigan Legal Milestone, a step towards a better system of justice. The U.S. Bill of Rights guarantees the right to legal counsel for anyone accused of a crime. Attorneys have an ethical obligation to assist in meeting the legal needs of the court and do so in many ways. While they have always worked to uphold the Sixth Amendment right to counsel guarantee, they themselves had no guarantee of being paid anything at all for their work for court defendants. Allegan County Prosecutor Gilbert Moyers recognized that a constitutional right that depended entirely on lawyers' free service was not sustainable or fair. When he was elected to the Michigan Senate in 1856, Moyers took a critical step forward, improving Michigan's criminal justice system by ensuring that people accused of crimes were represented by compensated attorneys. He introduced a bill to provide court-appointed attorneys $25 for murder cases, $10 for other felonies, and $5 for misdemeanor cases. A lawyer compelled to follow a case into another county or into the Supreme Court could recover an enlarged compensation. The bill became Public Act 109 of 1857, just a month after being introduced. Efforts to promote equal and meaningful access to justice in Michigan continues to this day, and lawyers continue to contribute to the goal of access to justice for all. Placed by the State Bar of Michigan and the Allegan County Bar Association 2022. And we can give the milestone another round of applause, please. Once again, I want to thank all the speakers for sharing this historic knowledge, your thoughts and your insights and your wisdom. It really was priceless to the presentation today. So we thank you, and if we can give our presenters a round of applause one more time, please. It seems that Michigan has a lot to celebrate, both in our historic leadership and in our modern reforms, and we have to keep it going. I would like to thank all of you for joining us in this momentous occasion, and it has been my honor to celebrate and serve as mistress of ceremony. I bid you all a good night. Thank you so much.